Yes, sir.
All right. Hey, I started out at ETSU a little over 30 years ago, and I got to a point where I didn't want to deliver pizzas. I was afraid of that. I tried football, it didn't work out, and so I just got out and I guess started hustling the streets and trying to find business, and ratcheted up from there. I spent 32 years, and I've done a little bit of everything in the marketing realm, and been very fortunate to be surrounded by some really talented people here at Cumberland Marketing, and we try to deliver a diverse set of marketing strategies for clients: video, web, campaign design, social media, basically whatever's needed. So that's what we do.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm Kyle Wirick with High Road Agency. I've been with High Road for 6 years now, and transplanted from Orlando, Florida, come up where there's seasons and cooler weather and less sweat. And so that's why I'm here. I love doing this. Started out in web design and moved into operations and then sales, and now I lead a really great group that's all based here in the Tri-Cities. And we are a full service marketing agency as well, so offering video and web and a never say no kind of attitude.
Sweet.
Hello, I'm Matt Bolus. I work with Kyle at the High Road Agency. I come from a chamber and tourism background at Kingsport and Bristol for about 20 years, and then I've been with the High Road for about 3. So I do specialize in tourism events, marketing, and so community events and projects. So that was something that was a need, and I took the switch and jumped over to the High Road Agency and enjoy marketing. It's kind of in our blood, I guess, so to speak. So thank you for the opportunity to be here.
No, and thank you for joining us. All right, sweet. So here's how this will work. Basically, I have a few general questions just to get the panelists and the conversation started. And then, of course, the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is just hearing from the audience any specific questions that you have for our panelists. So as you guys know, the title of this meetup is called Becoming a Brand. And so, yeah, I mean, let's start talking about branding. So the obvious first question is, what is branding, and why is it something that's important for a startup to spend time on? Let's start with Greg, and then anyone can jump in with any insights. So from what you think, what is branding, and why is that something that is important for a startup to even spend their time on?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, to me, branding is like more of a public perception of a company. You know, it's not, you know, everyone assumes like it's a logo and a typeface, and yes, that's all part of that system. But, you know, it's the way people feel about a company and the way they perceive a company. And usually that comes from a brand or a company having a purpose and having a, you know, something that drives the way that they behave and makes people, I guess, interested and attracted to that business versus, you know, just being a product. I mean, you know, a company's never just, you know, a thing. It's always, you know, there's a reason that an iPhone is in most people's hands in the world, because people like that brand and they believe in that brand. Otherwise, everyone would just have generic phones and it wouldn't matter. But, you know, I think it's important that brands should figure out their purpose before profit. As my chief creative officer at Lee Burnett would say, Susan Cradle, it's like purpose, put purpose before profit, because profit usually follows purpose.
That was one of the things I was going to add. You know, I think that was very well said. And when we look at potential clients or the clients that we have, and I'm always pushing them to try to find the essence of what they are, what they exist to do, as far as how they serve the world, what's their purpose, and what's their own personality. Because I find that we can help brands build help people build better brands when they know themselves and they know what they want to try to put out in the world, and not be so concerned about what they think the world wants to think of them, but figure out who you are and get true to the core essence of what you are. And then it's easier to build that out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. It helps you like define who you are. It helps you understand, you know, who you hire, who you fire, how the walls look in your building, you know, I mean, it should define everything from the inside out. You know, whether it be you that works in the building and or the consumer that sees it.
And branding's both a noun really and a verb. You know, as a noun, it's really a lot of what we've said here. It's a set of perceptions that your customers have about your company. As a verb, though, and that's I think what we're focusing more on today, is what you do, the set of actions that you take in order to cultivate those gut feelings that you want your customers to have about your company when they walk out of the room.
Right. It also, like, you know, finding your purpose keeps you from doing the wrong thing. Because, you know, right now you could start a company, but, you know, 10 years from now, what's going to keep you on the rails and keep you from, you know, making bad decisions for a company that, you know, was created a long time ago? And it's just finding that purpose and, you know, what your mission and vision is for that company is, you know, really helps define now and in the future. And
Greg, you think that when you find that, sometimes people find niches that need to be served, and so they do a startup, and then how are they going to be relevant 10 years from now if that need has gone away or if it's been, you know, served? And I think it's important as far as people and companies and brands staying innovative, staying on the cutting edge to know what's coming next so they can be relevant 10 years from now and not just, you know, solve a problem that's going to take a year or so.
Well, it's also, I mean, looking at trying to find the right purpose from the beginning. Because if you think about companies like, you know, Blockbuster versus Netflix, you know, they were essentially the same company in the beginning. And Blockbuster defined themselves by a brick and mortar store, and Netflix wanted to get entertainment in the hands of, you know, anyone at any point. And, you know, now Netflix is on your phone. It's, I mean, you know, it's everywhere. And, you know, that kept them moving, you know, in the right direction. The same thing like with Uber, you know, Uber could have just been a taxi service, but, you know, now they have Uber Eats, and, you know, who knows what they're going to have in the future. So if you define your purpose correctly in the beginning and leave it open, you know, open-ended to a point where you could evolve the company, and it's not always about that one product, but it's about a philosophy, I guess.
Innovation has to be woven in to the DNA.
Yeah, it's almost like having a purpose that's specific enough to get you going into a direction, but then open-ended enough that it's not going to keep you stuck in one thing. I do like that. So it's like bring this conversation kind of a bit down to like more, you know, the local startups in our communities. What mistakes, if any, do you guys see startups making when it comes to branding themselves?
I'll jump in. I do think one of the things that I have seen from experience, sometimes a company, when Greg and Chris, when y'all mentioned purpose and value systems, you need to stick to that. And sometimes I don't think with startups, they want to be something they're not, or they want to be something in the market that may not work. I mean, I would love to be the next to Amazon, but I just know I can't do it in my house right now. It's just not gonna make sense. But you need to be who you are. What I see a lot is we want to be someone else. That kind of grass is greener on the other side. We want to be the next whatever. We want to be, I'm an ice cream shop. I want to be the next Ben and Jerry's. Well, Ben and Jerry's purpose and value changed from day one to day 20 years later. I mean, it's very clear. And I think sometimes a startup wants to jump in and be 20 years down the road. But what is most critical is that first 6 months, 12 months, 3 years. And it's going to be fluid and change. And I think that's something that when we've worked with some startups or businesses that have had to change from brick and mortar to be more virtual. You know, those are things that happen. Being fluid and keep revisiting what your purpose and values are will help you avoid some of those pitfalls and mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I would also add too that a lot of times I see brands and people and companies getting away from the fundamentals and like the basic, what is your call to action? What is your unique selling proposition? And stay true to that, you know, and then, yeah, let's innovate. And hopefully your call to action and your unique selling proposition is very much aligned with your values and that core belief system. So, you know, this, it's really just staying focused and keeping your eye on the ball there with the, with the fundamentals. That's one of the, when you said what kind of mistakes do you see people making, I see that a lot. I think they take their eye off the ball and maybe start doing, coming out with messaging or branding that doesn't really fit their fundamental purpose.
I'd also add on to that, you know, there's a couple of things, like one, not knowing who your target is, you know, not truly understanding who your target audience is. And then also like not understanding whether are you a B2B company or you B2C company, you know, trying to figure that part out too. Cause I mean, sometimes people, you know, create a brand and they get, you know, out there and they're talking completely the wrong person. And, you know, it might be a phenomenal product, but if you're not talking to your tribe, so to speak, then, you know, you're talking into nothing.
And to circle back on the start of this conversation, I pulled this from our onboarding packet. Something we ask every client is, what is the special thing only you can do that your customers will miss out on if you didn't exist? And that goes back to knowing your purpose from the beginning. And you need to know that before you start your branding and marketing, because otherwise that branding and marketing will reflect the confusion that you still have about your own company.
I really like that.
Yeah.
And on a more basic level, I would say that a lot of companies think that your logo is your brand and that's it and nothing more. As long as I go to 99 Designs and download something and alter it in Photoshop, then I'm set. And that's not a full brand. That's a logo. And there's a whole lot more to it than that.
Right. Yeah. It's like saying a pair of shoelaces is someone's whole identity. I mean, it's, you know, there's a soul and a personality and you know, a history and all kinds of things that go along with that. It's not just this one little piece of it. And yes, it is important and it is a part of it, but you know, if you had a great purpose and a great, you know, brand position, then that logo is going to fall out of that and, you know, be a tiny piece of that bigger picture.
I'm totally stealing that shoelace analogy, by the way. So thank you for that. So it's like when it comes to like marketing, so of all the different avenues like a young startup would have to market themselves right now, which would you say is the most effective one to focus on? And I know like picking one thing to focus on, that's going to really depend on the specific situation. But what I'm getting at is, let's say someone is, you know, starting something and they have limited budgets, they have limited time and just personnel to really focus on many different things. What would you say for a startup like that in terms of like in our current times? What avenues of marketing would you advise them to focus on?
Well, there's the obvious of social media. I mean, you know, because it's everywhere and easily accessible for people, but you know, there's sometimes social media is not right for every brand. And you know, maybe it's PR, maybe it's word of mouth, maybe it's, you know, some sort of grassroots kind of thing. It really just depends on what that brand is and, you know, what knowing their target audience, knowing where to talk to them and, you know, defining.
I guess to make this question a bit more interesting, let's pick a type. Let's say you're a tech startup. Maybe you have an app or software as a service. What are you guys thinking?
One thing I was going to add to that as far as, well, email, you know, to Greg, any of the channels that you own and that you can post content free, like social media, email, If you have a website, obviously you want to keep that fresh. Sometimes it comes down to a really diligent effort to build your email list with potential clients. And that's that nitty gritty, work that it really takes time and thought and effort. And a lot of people don't want to do that, but that's the really boot camp way to build up and get people that are interested in what you have to offer, and then continually communicate to them.
Yeah. Another way there too, especially if you're talking about tech startups, is referral marketing. Not a whole lot of cost involved there. It's just a matter of generating a network of people who can be influencers and refer people back to you. And I concur with Chris and Greg there about content marketing and social media and email marketing, checking forums. Slack got its start on answering questions on Reddit and finding a solution that people needed. But I think in all of those channels, what's most important is to maintain your brand consistency and find your tone, find your voice. Look at Wendy's on Twitter, for example. They're very consistent anytime you tweet at them, and that's just part of their culture.
And that all goes back to what their purpose and their knowing their audience and all that stuff is, and talking right to those people.
Yeah, and that too. When you mentioned the word voice, that was one of the things that I was going to mention as far as staying consistent with that. Like through the years, sometimes you have different people that are, let's say, creating your social media posts or your content, and it's important that a brand knows how to stay consistent throughout changes in people, even people within the company. So that's an art. There's an art to that. That's not easy to do.
No, yeah, like with the voice, it's definitely a very interesting thing to tackle. It's like with our company specifically, it's like we try to find a good balance between sounding professional, but also fun. And it's like, once you nail that, it's important to keep it going. But yeah, as you said, as different people manages our social media, it can definitely be a challenge to ensure that everyone is sounding like us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Another way to get, your name out there is through like influencers or brand ambassadors and that kind of stuff as well. So, I mean, that's a easy way to do that, is to get people to just say great things about your product that, have huge audiences. And
yeah, speaking of influencers, I didn't have this question planned, but I think this is good. Do you guys have any general tips on convincing someone to really talk about your product? And obviously it's like the main one is, hey, you pay them, right? But it's like, let's say you don't have unlimited budgets and stuff. What have you guys seen that works well as far as someone like a new brand coming out, no one knows who they are, what they're doing, they don't have a huge amount of budget to work with? Like, how do you see those relationships starting out and being fruitful for both parties?
I think that varies on the product that you have. So Action VFX, for example, in your startup land could provide your assets to video creators at discount or free pricing, and then have them refer traffic back and provide testimonials and all that's part of the exchange.
Yeah, I mean, having a great product, if you have a great product and it looks good, tastes good, whatever, someone's going to say great things about it. So, if you have something you believe in and you think is a great product, and send it out to people to have them try it out. I mean, there's a whole world of things that people do, unboxings, they don't even do anything with the product. They're like, oh, look at this cool thing. But, it's going
to carry more weight when it's, like that, like what you're saying, organic, when it's authentic, and people actually do like it. And, I think that's obviously going to solidify the deal much quicker.
No, yeah. And it's like one thing we try to follow here is just really having the mindset of what's in it for them. because a lot of the times, if you can know how, your arrangement with an influencer will benefit them, you don't have to. Sometimes you can get away with spending less on the deal if you know just how to make it valuable to them. For example, one guy that has a YouTube channel that we'll be working with, he ended up really doing the video with us for essentially free in exchange of some free stuff. But one of the main reasons he wanted to do it was he genuinely felt that video would benefit his audience. And by then it wasn't even about getting paid, because he saw the value for his audience. So yeah, definitely keep thinking on, why would that person post to their audience on their Instagram, like, and how you can help them with that.
I've seen people have success just by being very persistent. Sometimes it just comes down to that, whether somebody likes you, like hopefully they like the product, and hopefully the deal part works out. It's going to be appealing to their audience. But sometimes it just comes down to hard work and persistence, and showing some personality and grit to get them to look at you and consider what you're wanting to do.
Mm-hmm.
I do think one thing to look at is when you're working with startups or different companies, that your plan can change midstream at a drop of a hat very quickly. We've seen that this year. I don't know of a single marketing plan we had in December and January, that is to say, by the time April came about. So, there may be new ways to look at, some companies look at a 12-month time period. Well, things change so quickly now. Building out that plan might need to change a lot more frequently, and we encourage that. And you mentioned social media influencers. That's a big thing coming on, and vetting those individuals is very important. If they're legit, they will tell you rates. You'll know how much each story is. They'll come visit for this price, and having that conversation with the social influencer, because sometimes everyone has great intentions on both sides, but the mix and the match just isn't there. Kind of like speed dating. I read about speed dating. That's all. But I've read about that, but it's kind of like that. You're like, oh, that'd be great. That'd be great if they're our spokesperson, or they're going to showcase our product. But if the full connection isn't there, and there's just not that true buy-in on both sides, that I would really vet the social media aspect, and they'll give you references too if they're legit. I mean, it's just like any other kind of marketing strategy. Look at it, evaluate it, and then see if it works for you.
No, that is very good. So let's go ahead and open it up to the audience for anyone that has questions for these guys. So yeah, starting right now, if you have a question, just go ahead and jump in, and we'd love to answer them.
I've got a question. When do you know as a startup that it's time to hire a professional? Is it always time? What should you do on your own? When is it time to bring in a professional? How does that relationship work, particularly when you don't have a lot of money and you're starting up?
And when you say a professional, Jose, you mean like a marketing professional, someone that's going to help you out kind of thing?
You. Yes. Like, what's the difference between, like, when a startup starts out, a lot of times they're doing everything on their own. Some of them have budgets enough to hire folks, but when do you make that call?
I mean, I would say depending on budget and, money, I mean, you could do it right from the beginning. I mean, it's always good to have someone that you can talk to, that can kind of look at you from the outside in, because a lot of times you're down in the weeds, you're kind of caught up in the day-to-day, and you can't see that. So I would say, I mean, if you can do that sooner rather than later, but obviously if you can't, then I would, start looking into, as a company, trying to define yourself, like who you are, what is your brand's purpose, but if you do struggle with that, or, have the money to do so, then I'd definitely recommend working with a partner that can help you go through that process.
And when it comes down to that, like the budget considerations, and obviously you're going to have to figure that out as far as when you feel like you've earned enough or generated enough revenue to be able to engage with somebody. But a lot of times it's tied to people's risk aversion, because there's that saying, you spend money to make money. And a lot of clients that this panel work with, they pay us as agencies to help them grow their business and grow their revenue. And it's like, which came first, the money to do that, or the marketing that helped create the money? So a lot of times it's how averse you are to taking on risk or debt to be able to start that ball rolling.
Branding and marketing has to have a piece of the initial budget, a piece of the initial emphasis at least. And if you're able to, as a startup, as an individual or a group of entrepreneurs, to put the appropriate amount of emphasis on those tasks and to give them attention on a regular basis, that's great. Whenever that task and that set of branding and marketing efforts becomes in the deficit, that's when you really need to make sure that you're finding someone to help out.
Right. And I mean, you could also do things like, let's just say you don't have a gigantic budget. You could work with an agency partner that could help you like figure out your purpose and figure out, who you are, and then sort of give you some guardrails to kind of take it off and run with it, if that's how you have to do it. But I do think it's good to work with someone that on a day-to-day basis deals with this kind of a situation that, it's what we all do, and it's what we kind of eat and breathe, just like that the person we're talking to eats and breathes whatever product they're selling. I mean, so it's.
No, that's good. So we have a couple of people that cannot talk currently, but they did write their questions on the chat. So we have one question from Brian Farmer. He says, do you feel that this region is at a stage that values branding, or more of your clients coming from outside of the region? That's a good question.
I'd say both. I mean, we deal with hyper local tiny startups all the way to, Texas Pete Garner Foods, so it's, and they all need and want branding. So I don't think any company is too small, and I don't think the region is too, I don't know what the right word would be, but I think any brand, no matter where you are, should have a purpose.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree. Most of our clients, the majority of our clients are local, within driving distance. We do have some partners that are in other states, but the majority of our partners are here, and we provide the same level of service here as we would to a multinational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, if you treat everyone, the same, no matter whether they are a small client or whether they're a giant client, I mean, I think that you're always going to give them a great product, and it's,
No, awesome. So we do have another question that Edwin Williams put on the chat. He says, how do you construct brand voice so that others besides you can maintain that brand image and style independent of your constant input?
That's a good question. If anybody can figure that out.
Well, there's some fundamentals, and nobody has it completely figured out, but you do have to write it down. You do have to decide what it's going to be and find a way to vocalize it, to orate it, to write it down in some way and discuss, this is how we want to sound. And it could be more of just a framework, like a brand environment. You need to make sure that you exist within this environment. Or it could be more specific and say, this is an example of a response that we want to give people on Facebook when they give us a negative review, so that you maintain that voice. It was like you guys were, the other panelists were saying, when you have multiple people working on your account and then you hire someone else in and they've got multiple people working on an account, you want to make sure that everybody sounds like it's coming from the same voice, the same human being.
Yeah. Yeah, we have, I mean, for all of our clients, we have brand guides that we create that is anything from, you know, the tone of voice that you're talking about, and that this is the way you talk about X, all the way down to the logo can never be, you know, any closer than this to an item or something. I mean, it's, you know, that's part of our job, is to define those parameters about a brand. So when it, you know, it's out in the world, you know, or you work with an agency partner, say, you know, the lead agency comes up with a concept and then they want to partner with a outside vendor, then you can hand over the brand guide and they understand how, you know, you're gonna, that they should talk about it, talk about the brand. So, you know, there's definitely ways to do that. And it's very important to figure that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that works for me personally and with our agency is I like to have as many people as part of our team as possible, so that you do gain different perspectives from different walks of life. So if you don't have a team, and if you don't have an agency that's helping you with your brand voice, and it's just you, or if it's just 2 or 3 people, I would get as many as you can possibly pull together to pull perspective from, because everybody sees the world so much different right now, and being able to develop a consistent voice, it's you got to marinate in it over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, getting people like-minded, to not from a worldview standpoint, but from a voice standpoint, to spend time together, answer questions, come up with messaging for their content, and be consistent with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we have a new question from Michelle. She just started a new yoga studio, and she says, what are the best routes to capturing email addresses? Finding this difficult currently.
Yeah, the simple answer there that we found that's successful is free stuff. People are just hammered with emails. They're hesitant to give it away. You have to buy their email address away from them. And the best way to do that is I'm going to give you this in exchange for that, even if it's just a chance to win a private session, or I'm going to give away 2 private sessions a month to all the new email subscribers. Our parent company runs contests weekly, and they've increased nationally. Our email database has grown by 250,000 email addresses, all through free stuff.
Anyone else?
Ro, how do you guys capture email addresses? What do you guys do for that?
Yeah, so it's like, definitely free stuff is a huge part of that. We have obviously a library of paid products, but then we have a good amount of actual free products on the website. So yeah, that is the biggest thing that helps us grow our email list, is just offering something of value to people, because at the end of the day, if they're getting the free stuff, then that means they're interested in the paid stuff. And once they get the free stuff, we like to say they're in our webs. So it's like, you're in our webs now, so we're just going to prime you for success down the line. So,
and free stuff doesn't have to mean a physical object. It could be information or advice, or you know, that kind of stuff as well. So that it doesn't necessarily have to be something physical.
No, yeah. And Michelle had a follow-up question. She said, how did you market the free stuff, social media and website? And yeah, I would say just any way you can, really. So yeah, I mean, we do have that stuff on the website that you can see clearly. We also have a blog on our website, and one of the things you have is, as you scroll down the blog, you'll find a pop-up, I think, once you reach like 50%. Scrolling through the page or something like that, that again encourages you, hey, if you want more content like this, go ahead and enter your email and we'll send you a newsletter every week that has like visual effects news and stuff. So yeah, just in really any way that you can. One idea I just started thinking of, like a yoga studio, is you really could do a video that maybe has some good getting started in yoga tips or something that you can share. It's kind of like educational, right? And maybe that's something you use to, hey, I will send you either a video or PDF that contains X amount of things. And that could be a cool way to add value to someone who's interested.
Hey, the other thing too with emails is I would much rather have 10 people who want my email to come to their inbox than 1,000 people that don't. So be very, very cautious about buying lists or spamming or, hey, I just need a bunch of emails. I would much rather have those 5 to 10 people that really want to open my email than, 1,000 that don't. So don't measure your success based off of how many you've got on your list.
That goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is about know your target audience. Because if you know your target audience, then, it might just be 5 people or it might be thousands of people. But it's better to, like Jose said, talk specifically to those people and give them content that they want versus garbage we all get in our email every day.
Abraham had a really great question. He said, please share some pro tips on encouraging your current clients to assist you with referral marketing.
I like that as far as that as a strategy. And we've reached out to clients before, and I think you just have to really choose your words carefully, because you're basically asking somebody to give you a compliment. And that's handled, you need to handle that delicately. I guess number one, make sure that you have had good, experiences, that they've had a good experience with you, and really do feel authentically that I really would, suggest this to somebody I know. You got to earn that. I mean, that's something that you got to earn, and then word it right.
But it also goes back to what Greg said. You got to have a great product. You have to have a good product. You have to have a good message. And then to Chris's point, you have to ask. And there's no shame in that. And if you have a great product, you may not even have to ask. And every time I walk into Spark, I don't think a week's gone by that David and I haven't talked about the new Wise camera or vacuum or headphones or whatever is coming out there with their great products. And I tell people I know about it. They don't have to ask.
Right. It's like, when you apply for a job, or when you want to go back to school or whatever, I mean, you ask for references, and it's kind of the same principle. It's just with actual business partners and, people that you work with.
So one thing I would also say is try to think of a way to, like, if you're going to ask someone for a referral, which, I mean, we do affiliate marketing, which is, I mean, there's some overlap between that because some of our clients are also affiliates and they get a pretty good commission every time someone they send to us buy from us. I think it's like 20%, which is definitely very good for what we do. But I would say, yeah, if you're wanting to do that strategy en masse, I would definitely try to think on ways to also help it benefit the client that's referring, and make it simple for them too, because it's like a lot of the time, if it's like, oh, you need to sign up on this program and enter email here and do this, and then we'll paste the code here. Like, if it's too complicated, then it's just like, okay, you've kind of lost me. But if you really do make it very simple for them to know that, hey, if I refer X amount of people, I'll get this, and you streamline the process, then, I mean, we've found that helps quite a bit and drives people to share more about you. So,
Hey, Ro, Emma Kate had a question in the chat.
Emma Kate said, are there language do's and don'ts when promoting your brand to help stay close to your mission?
Can you repeat that, Ro?
Yes, it's, are there language do's and don'ts when promoting your brand to help stay close to your mission?
I mean, I don't know if there's any specific language do's and don'ts, because I mean, you think about what we were talking about earlier with Wendy's or even Slim Jim's social media. I mean, they, they're kind of crazy, and they can do whatever they want, but it's really goes back to, if you have a good brand positioning and a good purpose, then it's going to guide you in the right direction. And you hopefully, if you did all the right things, you're not going to say something wrong or bad or stupid or whatever.
Yeah, it's like one thing for us that I do tell our marketing team all the time is, you have to sound like you know what you're talking about. And what I mean by that is, like, we're a visual effects company and we're targeting artists and, filmmakers and visual effects artists. And it's like all marketers aren't necessarily that, right? And it's a very, at the end of the day, people know when someone is saying something, but they don't truly know what they're saying, if that makes sense. It's like, I don't know how to best explain it, but if someone is talking about video editing and they don't truly understand video editing, then the message can come across just a bit strange, because you feel like, oh, this is obviously not someone that knows us, and then your audience just feel like you don't really know who they are. And one thing we try to do with that is bring the creative team on our company closer to our marketing team. That way, if there was anything going out that just sounded like, oh, you're a total noob, you do not know visual effects at all, then at least we can kind of bridge that gap a little bit more. So it's not a specific language, but I would just say try to sound like you fit in with your audience, because it just makes communication so much easier, and they truly feel that you're the brand for them because they believe you know exactly who they are.
It's being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and positive.
Yeah.
Hey, one quick trick that I do when I look at messaging, we did this for Spark Plaza, is we personify the brand. So we come up with a character, a person. How do they dress? What do they talk like? What do they look like? What music do they listen to? And when you do that, then it's a lot easier to come up with a voice for that person. So then you can ask yourself questions when you write an email or print out a sign or whatever. Does it fit this person? Would this person say this to somebody else? And it gives you a really good way to make sure you're checking your stuff that's going out.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I have a vocal question, just because I don't know how to type it out for you guys. When we're thinking about kind of what Jose was talking about there, and you're kind of talking about market segmentation stuff, we're kind of working with an early startup nonprofit here. I have some fear about over segmenting and maybe collapsing my market too small. Do you ever see that with startups where I've over personified or I've over decided that this is the type of person that would be interested in our service, and I've actually limited my market potential?
Well, if you've niched down that far, I would want to see if you're having good results with that particular audience before you start, expanding to larger.
Right. I would agree with that. I mean, it's also like a lot of times people get freaked out, in the first year, because what is it like? When you start a business, like the first year you don't make any profit. Second year you kind of get, to a certain point, and then finally, like third and fourth year is when you start actually making money. So a lot of times people get scared and want to pivot or change, and I think you really like you were saying, is like make sure you have traction with the right audience, and early on you can obviously pivot and find that correct audience. But yeah.
That's sweet. One of the questions I had on my list that I didn't get to ask, which, I feel like we all kind of know the answer to that, but I think it'd be good to hear, maybe you guys have some specific examples. But should a startup try to appear bigger than they actually are in an attempt to appear more legitimate to their users? Why or why not?
That's a great question. I had to do that, I think, a little bit back in the beginning days. But my head tells me now it's like just being authentic. We've talked about being authentic and true to who you are and what you stand for and what you offer. And so it's hard for me to want to encourage deception like that. I think the more granular, I mean, just, it is what it is, you know, the more truth, the more legs it's going to have to grow.
Yeah, I think that's the right way. I mean, I would never, as a business or as a person or anything, lie or say what I'm not, because at some point someone's going to find you out.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's today or tomorrow or whatever, at some point, you know, that lie is going to come out somewhere. And also the truth is more powerful than you know, the lie is. I mean,
Yes.
you know, if you're a really great brand and a really great product, the truth about that product or the story about that product is going to be way more powerful and resonate with the right audience way more than some BS you come up with that, you know, is just not true.
I think there's some individuals that have done incredible jobs and set the tone of being legitimate and in very honest way. Some of you may know Jeff Bird, who's the general manager of Bristol Motor Speedway. His saying was always exceed expectations. He knew to deliver a high quality, top-notch event and then go above. But they never had to grow themselves bigger than what they are, because it spoke for themselves that the experience that these individuals had. And he was a great spokesman person for that. And what Chris is saying is spot on. Greg, what Greg's saying is spot on. I mean, let's be very real. Cheddar rounds are amazing. We don't need to make them bigger than what they are, because there is the most amazing product on the planet. They are. So, I mean, you know, they're going to be the great experience every time you're going to come through. So I just wish they were all day, just like every other person in the Tri-Cities. But I tease about that. But in reality, those are some individuals and examples of where they are who they are. They provide the highest level that they can provide, and the product moves off the shelf.
And Ro, I think bringing that up brings up the topic of, in the startup realm, there's this idea that you fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the problem, like if you're trying to do an agency and it's just you in your garage, a picture of you in your garage, if you're being creative about it, may really work. But if you're also trying to sell something to, you know, a Fortune 500 company, like that may make them nervous. So, but I think where people miss out on this is that faking it till you make it isn't just outright lying. It's not that you go out and just pretend that you're this huge agency and have all this stuff. It's coming across as being extremely professional and having the brand, the marketing, having all the pieces in place to represent you well enough that you actually seem bigger than you are. And I think you're successful at that when you, when people come to you and go, oh, it's just, you know, a couple of you guys, that's amazing. Or they're surprised about it when you're talking as a small company and they're looking at your branding, your icon, your marketing, and they're impressed by it. And I think that's one thing that's always impressed me about Action VFX, because it's a good sized company now, but even early on, you guys always had really professional presence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And I would concur with just that. And don't write a check that you can't cash. And there's saltier ways of saying that, but you don't want to overpromise. Set your expectations ahead of time and have authenticity and honesty. But also everything that we've talked about earlier about knowing your customer and having a brand and being consistent. All of those things will make you look more competitive than others who are the same size and don't have those ducks in a row.
Amen.
Yeah, I think when I think back on,
sorry, Ro.
Oh, go ahead.
I talked out turn. No, just because I want to say this really quick, because my company is a software as a service, and David and I had an awesome conversation just this week about certain ways that I may present myself, because we're working with universities. And so when it is a software as a service, like I can't say, oh yeah, we've got that all figured out, because they're going to go click that button and see that that doesn't work. But what I'm finding is teetering that line of being transparent, but also people want to do business with people. Like if you know where you're going and you have that confidence, like people are going to be excited to get in there and kind of be with you as you grow and to have that ground level experience. And so that's something that, like I said, David has been helping me with, is like, it's totally fine to let people know like the truth, because that's an exciting thing. Like people want to be a part of a startup a lot of times. So just remember, you're selling to a human. You are always, it's just two humans or however many humans together, rather than this magical like startup to startup or high level executive to high level executive. At the end of the day, they're gonna go home and watch TV and do all the same things you're gonna do. So always keep that in mind. And that's what I tell myself.
No,
Right.
makes
And
a lot of
plus, I mean,
sense.
it's
Thank you.
so easy. It's so easy to find out things nowadays. Like, 40 years ago, somebody could be like, yeah, we're the biggest company in the world. And nobody would ever know the difference. But I mean, now, like with a single Google search, you can find out a lot about certain things. And there's just no point in it to not be true to who you are, because, like she was saying, is like people are going to like you as a human and like the things that you have, because it is true and it is something someone wants to interact with or be a part of.
Yeah, so I guess one simplified answer would be don't lie, but do be the best version of yourself. That will help. We did have one question from Chad. He said, B2B versus B2C. Is B2B boring? How to creatively attack B2B marketing? So it is 12:59 now, so that will be our last question. So yeah, what do you guys think? How to creatively attack, not just do, but attack B2B marketing?
Jose just answered it for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think personally that people forget, like, you're like, I'm a business talking to a business, and it's like, no, you're not. You're a human like Jose said right there. You're a human talking to another human being. And, the marketing director of that company or whatever is still gonna, interact with that thing like a human being. They're not a robot. They're not that product or anything like that. So I think you need to look at another company as a human being, not, there's people in there. That's not a machine.
To me, those lines are blurred, because we get just excited from a marketing standpoint of helping convey messages to a business as we do to a consumer. And it's about the passion that your creative people and production crew have to deliver the message that you want to deliver. It don't matter what audience it's going to, if it's consumers or business, it's finding the excitement of the message and what you're trying to convey, the passion behind that. So it could be just as exciting for sure.
And take it back to that question that I posed at the beginning. What's the special thing that only you can do that your customers will miss if you didn't exist? And that doesn't, your customers, whoever you're selling to, whether it's an acquisitions specialist or a marketing firm or end user.
I really like that, Kyle. You said it earlier, and I was going to ask you to repeat it. So thank you for repeating it. It's like, yeah, you really have to know what that special thing about you is, because everything derives from that. Yeah. Well, awesome. So, hey, it is 1 now, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But hey, this was so great. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. Thank you, David, for really getting all of our panelists together for this. This was very cool. And, thanks for everyone who attended and stuff. And
I want to thank Emma Kate as well. She's our new intern at FoundersForge, and she's doing a phenomenal job and helping us market and promote things. And it's one of our best events ever.
Yay, good job, Emma Kate. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us. This has been great. This is the last Founders Meetup of the year. We're planning on having one in December, but FoundersForge is still a thing. You can find us at myfoundersforge.com, and definitely get in touch with us. We definitely like to be just knowing what you guys are doing, any cool things happening. And we'll be having different events and stuff coming up too. So definitely follow us and keep updated with us. There's a lot of cool things happening in this region, and it's just been such an honor to really be together with you all as part of that. So, oh yes, and also follow us on social media, because that is a great way to keep updated with us. Emma Kate has been killing our social media game recently. So you'll be hearing a lot more from us too. So, all right, well, thank you everyone, and hope you have a good one.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a spicy day.
This was fun. This was fun.
Yeah. Are we going to play the who waits around till the very end game? Who's the last one to leave? I love playing that game.
Ooh, you